Hey everyone, it's the Haunting Hour here. Before we jump into today's video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And if you have any thoughts on the stories in this video, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I always love hearing your feedback. Now, let's get into the terrifying stories. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you all have an awesome day. I've never been the type to believe in anything supernatural. I don't scare easy either. Not the way people do over ghost stories or urban legends. I used to laugh at that stuff. Even when I watched those late-night YouTube videos, ones where people whispered into their mic about creepy encounters in the woods or haunted hospitals, I'd always roll my eyes. I liked the idea of being scared, but I never expected to live something that would change me like this. What happened to me didn't come with flickering lights or slamming doors. It didn't feel like something out there was after me. It felt like something was inside, and I didn't know it until it was too late. This happened during the fall of my senior year. I was still living with my dad at the time. We weren't close. He worked overnight shifts as a delivery driver, and I had school early in the mornings, so we barely saw each other. He'd leave around 8 p.m., and I wouldn't see him again until he passed out on the couch the next day. I kept to myself a lot. I didn't have a huge social circle. Just a couple friends I texted now and then, but I wasn't the type to open up. That distance between me and everyone else. I think that's why what happened got so far. Nobody noticed, not even me at first. It started on a Sunday night. I remember that part clearly because I had a huge test coming up the next morning and couldn't sleep. It was one of those gross nights where the air feels sticky and stale, no matter how wide you crack the window. I tossed and turned for what felt like hours. Every time I got comfortable, a breeze would move the curtain weird, or something would creak outside, and I'd be back to square one. I must have drifted off eventually, but somewhere between dreaming and waking, I felt this tickle on my face. Not a sharp touch, more like a whisper. I was too out of it to fully open my eyes, but I reached up and lazily brushed at my cheek. Whatever it was, it moved, light and quick. I must have rolled over and gone back to sleep, not thinking twice about it. The next morning, I dragged myself out of bed, feeling like I hadn't slept at all. My head was cloudy, and I had that weird sticky feeling on my skin like I'd been sweating in my sleep. I went straight to the bathroom to wash up. That's when I saw it. There was a small red mark on my left cheek, just under my eye right near the cheekbone. It looked like a bug bite, or maybe the start of a pimple, but it had this dark red center and was a little swollen. I leaned into the mirror and poked it lightly. It stung more than I expected. Not just surface pain, it was deeper, like something under the skin was sore. I figured it was nothing. Maybe a spider bite, maybe stress. I had been eating like crap, and my sleep was all over the place. I splashed some cold water on it and moved on. But during school that day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The mark throbbed. Not in a way where it just hurt when I touched it. No, it had the slow, dull pulsing like it was following my heartbeat. It felt like it was moving with me, like it was part of me, but also separate. I found myself touching it without realizing, just brushing it, rubbing around it. It itched a little but hurt more. By the time I got home, it had grown. I remember locking the bathroom door and flipping on the bright mirror lights. The spot was almost the size of a nickel now, and the skin around it was raised like a welt. The center was darker than before, not black, but a deep, angry purple red, and it glistened like it was about to burst. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach flip. When I pressed very gently on the edge of the bump, I felt something shift. I froze. It didn't feel like fluid. It wasn't squishy like a normal pimple or blister. It was dense, packed, like something solid was underneath, moving slightly with pressure. I backed away from the mirror. My hand was shaking. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to call attention to it. I didn't want to tell my dad. I don't even know why. Maybe part of me thought I was overreacting. Or maybe I didn't want someone else confirming that it really was that bad. So I kept quiet. The next day, it looked worse. I had started wearing my hoodie tighter around my face to hide it from people at school. Not that anyone would have said anything. Most people didn't even look at me. But I couldn't help thinking people were staring. like they could see what was wrong before I even showed them. By Tuesday night, I was in pain. The mark wasn't a mark anymore. It was a full-on lump, swollen so badly that it was tugging the skin under my eye upward. I could feel it in my jaw when I chewed. The whole left side of my face ached constantly. I was starting to get weird headaches too. Pressure behind the eye, mostly on that side. And then came the part I can't explain. That night, I looked into the mirror again, and when I tilted my head and pressed gently, I felt something twitch. It didn't hurt. It moved. Not the way your muscles move when you're tense. This was smaller, like a ripple from the inside. I snapped my hand away and stared, heart pounding. My mouth went dry. I thought maybe I was imagining it. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. I leaned closer, but I couldn't bring myself to touch it again. I didn't want to feel that movement. I didn't want to know it was real. But deep down, I already knew. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat up in bed, lights off, phone in hand, searching forums and symptom pages. Bud bite? Cyst? Infection? I couldn't find anything that matched what I felt, and no pictures online came close to what I was seeing in the mirror. The next morning, I skipped school and stayed in bed, holding one side of my face like I could stop whatever was going on just by keeping still. My cheek burned with heat. The skin had gone from red to this sick yellow tint, like bruised fruit. The bump looked ready to split open. It was tight, glossy, stretched so thin I could almost see through it. I didn't care how it looked anymore. I just wanted it to stop. That night, I decided to take a bath. I don't know why. I think I thought it would relax me, help the pain. The hot water felt good for the first few minutes. I leaned back, letting my head rest on the edge of the tub, eyes half closed, breathing slow. And then it happened. At first, I heard this faint sound, like someone slowly crushing dry leaves. Then a pop, soft but sharp, and I felt something warm trickle down my cheek. I reached up automatically and touched the bump, and the skin caved in. It had burst. I pulled my hand back and saw it was coated in something dark. Something moved across my palm. I froze. Then I saw the water, all around me, moving, rippling, tiny shapes, scattering. They weren't bugs. They were baby spiders. Dozens. No, hundreds. Tiny, black, fast, crawling across the water, skittering over the surface, swimming through it, pouring out from the hole in my cheek like a broken nest. I screamed. I scrambled to stand up, but slipped on the wet porcelain and fell back hard. I thrashed, trying to get them off. I scooped handfuls of water and flung them away, but they kept coming. I felt them crawling across my chest, my neck, my ears. I flapped and scratched and dragged the towel across my face so hard I thought I'd rip the skin off. But no matter how hard I scrubbed, I could still feel them, still inside me. I don't remember much after that. It's like my brain shut off. I think I passed out in the bathroom, wrapped in the towel, freezing on the cold tile. When I woke up, it was morning. The bathroom was clean, dry. No water on the floor, no spiders, no stains, no signs of what had happened. But my cheek, there was a hole, small, deep, just below the surface of the skin. No fresh blood, just the raw remains of something that had once been alive. The edges of the hole were scabbed over, the skin around it bruised and dull. I stared at myself in the mirror, not blinking. I waited to see one crawl back out. None did. Not then. I didn't go to the doctor. I couldn't explain it. I didn't want to explain it. I went back to school like nothing had happened. People gave me weird looks. But nobody said anything. Nobody ever does when you're quiet. I just told people I got bit by something and let the rumors do the rest. Over the next few weeks, the wound closed, left a scar about the size of a dime. Not raised, not obvious, but still there. Sometimes when I'm half asleep, I catch myself rubbing it with my thumb, just to make sure it's still closed. But here's where things got worse. A week later, I was cleaning the bathtub, scrubbing the drain, and found something jammed in the metal. It was small, dry, curled up, a spider. Not a normal one either. Way too small to be full grown, but too big to be just born. It looked dried out, like it had been dead for days. Legs tucked tight, body cracked. A few days later, I found another one. in my pillowcase. Then another one on the inside of my closet door, just sitting there, perfectly still. They never came in swarms again, never a nest, just one at a time, like they were watching, checking in. I keep my windows shut now. I sleep with noise, TV, white noise machine, anything to drown out the silence. Because when it's quiet enough, and I lay still long enough, I swear I can hear scratching, not outside, not on the floor, under my skin. I don't expect you to believe this. I barely believe it myself, and I was there. I've never told the full story, not the real version at least, but I need to get it out, even if it keeps me up again tonight. Even if it means I hear that sound in my head all over again. This happened last summer, early July. I was 19, working part-time at an auto shop, living at home, trying to keep my head above water. That kind of stretch of life where everything feels in between. You're not a kid anymore, but nothing feels stable. That's when I met her. I'll call her M. We weren't together long, but those few weeks felt intense. I pick her up after her shifts, and we drive. No destination, just talk, joke around. Sometimes park somewhere quiet and just sit with each other. One night, it was too hot to stay inside. I had the windows down, and she climbed in with a bag of gas station snacks. No plan, no curfew. Just wanted to be anywhere but home. I remembered this old fire road out past Ridge Hill, a place people used to hang out before all the new developments started pushing into the woods. I hadn't been out there in years, but it was quiet and off-grid. No street lights, no cameras, no patrols. Just the kind of dark that made you feel like the world stopped existing beyond your headlights. We drove out around 10:30. The farther we got, the more the road started to narrow and break apart. Asphalt turned to gravel. Then the GPS stopped updating. I tapped my phone screen a few times, watched the blue dots spin in place, then freeze. No service, I muttered, mostly to myself. M gave a small shrug, still sipping her iced tea. She didn't mind. Honestly, neither did I. We pulled off where a rusted gate blocked a narrow dirt path leading deeper into the trees. There were beer cans and tire tracks nearby, evidence other people had come out here recently. It felt forgotten, but not completely abandoned. I killed the engine. The silence hit hard. Not just quiet, still. No crickets, no frogs, not even leaves rustling. The woods just sat there, thick and black, like they were listening. M opened a bag of chips. I reached over, turned on Spotify, and let it fill the car with low, familiar music. It helped. We started talking about nothing. Old cartoons, weird dreams, dumb people at work. She was curled up in the passenger seat, legs tucked under her. The glow from my phone screen lit her face in soft flashes as the songs changed. Then the music just stopped. At first, I thought it was a buffering issue. My phone screen froze, then the Bluetooth symbol blinked off. I glanced at the signal bar, 0. I gave the phone a little shake like that would help, and suddenly a voice came through the speakers. Not from Spotify, but from the radio. There's been an escape. The voice was flat. No station ID, no music bed, just a single male voice coming through FN static. A male patient has escaped from East Pine Behavioral. He was last seen wearing a light blue gown. The man is considered dangerous. If seen, do not approach. Authorities report he lost his right hand in a past incident and now uses a metal hook in its place. The voice cut off. No warning tone. No, this is a test. No static fade. Just silence. Then the music resumed, like nothing happened. I looked over at M. Her expression had changed completely. She stared at the dash, not blinking, like she was trying to figure out if she imagined it. I could feel the tension crawling into my chest. "Can we go somewhere else?" she asked quietly. I tried to play it off, told her it was probably a prank, some old emergency tape or late-night radio stunt. I even chuckled, but it came out thin and dry. She didn't say anything, just hugged her arms around herself and stared at the tree line. I nodded and hit the lock button. All 4 doors clicked shut. I leaned back, trying to calm the mood. I said we'd leave in a few minutes, once the weird feeling passed. I reached for her hand, and she let me take it. But she didn't say anything else. A couple of minutes went by, maybe 5. Long enough for me to start convincing myself it was just a weird coincidence. That's when I saw something move. It was up the road, just barely in the glow of the moonlight leaking through the trees. A shape, limping, uneven, just barely crossing the trail, maybe 40 feet ahead of us. I sat up straighter, squinting. At first, I thought it was a deer. Or maybe someone walking their dog. But it didn't move right. It was crooked. Like one side of its body didn't bend. And it was tall, too tall. And its right arm, if it was an arm, was long, thin, and ended in a curve that caught the moonlight like chrome. I leaned forward, reached for the ignition. "Don't move," I whispered to N. She froze, then followed my gaze. I saw her hands tighten into fists in her lap. The figure stopped in the middle of the path. Just stood there, head tilted like it was listening. That's when I heard it. A soft scraping. Metal dragging along rock. Like someone pulling a crowbar across concrete. I jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life, but the headlights flickered once, just briefly. And when they did, I swear on everything, I saw the shape closer. Like it had jumped forward a few feet. Not walked, just shifted. My heart was beating so loud I couldn't hear anything else. I reached down to put the car in gear, and M screamed. Something hit the back of the car. I turned. Nothing there. Then a second funk, this time on her side. She reached for the door handle on instinct, and I shouted, "Don't open it." She froze again. Her eyes were locked on the window now. I followed her gaze and sight. A reflection, something silver. The curved, smearing across the glass, like it was testing the strength. I slammed the car into reverse, spun the wheel, and tore out of the pull-off. Gravel shot in every direction. The tires skidded, but I didn't slow down. The forest blurred past us, trees flashing in the rearview mirror. Neither of us spoke. She was pressed into the seat, hands over her mouth. I kept checking the mirror, waiting to see that shape chasing us, limping, dragging that hook. But there was nothing. Once we got back onto the main road, I forced myself to slow down, just enough to stop the tires from squealing. The air felt heavy in the car, like we had brought something back with us. M hadn't said a word. She was staring out the window, fists still clenched. I reached over and took her hand again. It was ice cold. When we finally pulled into her aunt's driveway, she grabbed her bag and bolted inside without a word. I didn't blame her. I sat there for a second, catching my breath, trying to convince myself we'd just imagined it, that it was a shadow, or a trick, or maybe some freak crawling around in the woods trying to scare people. Then I got out to check the car. I walked slowly around the passenger side. Nothing at first. Then I saw it. On the door handle, right where N's hand had been just minutes ago, something was hanging, a strip of fabric, pale blue, like the color of a hospital gown. It was frayed and stained dark along one edge. It looked wet. I stepped closer and felt something scrape under my shoe. I looked down. Etched into the paint, right below the handle, was a curved gouge, not deep, but clean, like something sharp had dragged across it in a tight arc. I didn't touch the fabric. I didn't take a photo. I just got back in the car and left. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I drove out to Pine Creek again. During the day, it felt smaller, less threatening. The trees were thinner than I remembered. But when I reached the spot where we had parked, the gate was gone. Not just moved, gone. No tire tracks, no gravel pull-off, just solid tree line, like it had never been there, like the woods swallowed it up. I walked around for maybe 10 minutes, didn't see any footprints, no signs anyone had been there at all. When I got back to the car, the fabric was gone, just vanished. There was no wind. I hadn't touched it. It hadn't rained, but it was no longer hanging from the handle. All that remained was that thin, rust-colored smear beneath the scratch, faded into the paint like dried blood. I spent hours that day trying to find anything online about an East Pine behavioral facility. There was nothing, no records, no location, not even on archived maps. I checked radio station logs, nothing about an emergency broadcast, no warnings issued that night, no mention of any escaped patient. I even drove to the sheriff's office 2 towns over, pretending to be a reporter for a local blog. The woman behind the desk gave me this tight smile and said, "We haven't had an asylum in Ridge Hill since the 80s. Torn down. Condos now." That didn't help. I stopped seeing M after that. We didn't break up exactly, just stopped calling, stopped texting. I think we both knew whatever had happened that night had cracked something open. Something you couldn't explain without sounding insane. I sold the car 2 months later, not because of the scratch, not because of the sound that sometimes echoed in my head when I drove past wooded roads, but because I couldn't stop smelling the faint scent of rust and pine every time I sat in the driver's seat. Even after detailing it 3 times, even after replacing the mats, it clung to the upholstery, like it had sunk into the fabric. And here's the part that's hardest to explain, maybe the part no one ever believes. Sometimes I still hear the voice. Late at night, when I'm driving alone on empty highways, the music will skip just once, just enough to notice. Then for half a second, the speakers crackle and I hear it. There's been an escape. Then it's gone. I don't park off dark roads anymore. I don't pick up girls I barely know, and I never, ever ignore my gut when something doesn't feel right. But more than anything, I don't check the passenger door after I park. Not anymore. Because one night, when I was walking past a parked car near a trailhead not far from here, I saw something hanging from the handle, a strip of blue cloth, swaying in the wind, and in the paint beneath it, just barely visible in the dusk, was a curved mark. When I was 9, my mom and I moved into a small rental house at the edge of town, just the 2 of us. It was quiet, cheap, and old enough that the light switches clicked louder than the lights themselves. The house was plain, beige siding, off-white walls, squeaky floors. It didn't have a basement, but the wood paneling in the hallway had water damage and gave off a strange smell, like wet paper and dust that never fully dried. My mom said it just needed to air out. It never did. There was one room I wasn't allowed to go in. At the end of the hallway was a door that didn't match the others. All the others were clean, white-painted wood with smooth silver knobs. But that one was a pale yellow, like someone had tried to paint over a stain and given up halfway through. Its knob was dark bronze, almost black, and colder than the others even in summer. The first time we tested, my mom stopped walking and said, "That door stays closed. It's just junk. And the floor in there's not safe." She didn't look at me when she said it, just jiggled the knob to make sure it was locked, and walked off like it wasn't worth discussing. That should have been enough to make me forget about it. But I was a kid, and kids notice things adults think are invisible. The first time I heard the noise, it was a quiet Sunday morning. My mom was upstairs, typing away in her office with the door shut. I was in the living room, eating cereal and watching cartoons. Outside, the wind was light. Birds chirped like normal. Then I heard it. From down the hall, from behind that door, came a soft, uneven scraping. It wasn't constant, just a few quick scrapes, then silence, like something dragging a nail across wood. I turned off the TV and listened harder. Nothing. I got up and walked to the hallway. Right as I passed the yellow door, I heard something else. Breathing. Fast, shallow. Like someone panicking but trying to stay quiet. I didn't stop. Just walked straight to the kitchen and stayed there until my mom came down to make lunch. I didn't say anything to her. I didn't want her to think I was nosing around. But the sounds didn't go away. They got more frequent. Sometimes it was just light shuffling. Other times it was tapping, not random, rhythmic, like counting in threes. Once, I thought I heard a soft whimper. Not from a dog, not from an animal at all. It sounded like a child. It got to the point where I couldn't walk down the hall without holding my breath. I started sleeping with my door shut, even during the day. Then one afternoon, something happened that I couldn't write off as my imagination. My mom had gone to the store. She said she'd be back in an hour. I was home alone, drawing at the kitchen table. Then, tap, tap, tap. I looked up. The sound had come from the hallway. I stood up and crept closer. When I got near the yellow door, I heard it again, closer now. A whisper. Please. The word was low, dry, barely there. Then, scrap, ape. Something heavy dragged across the floor behind the door. I wanted to run, but I just stood there. Then I heard, please, I'm so hungry. It didn't sound like someone asking. It sounded like someone confessing. That broke the spell. I turned and ran out of the hallway and locked myself in my room. I stayed there until my mom got home. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours. I didn't tell her. I couldn't. I didn't want her to think I'd been near the door. But I watched her more carefully after that. She was changing. At first, it was small stuff. She stopped cooking dinner and just microwaved canned soup or let me eat cereal. She forgot the names of TV shows we used to watch together. She'd zone out in the middle of talking, like someone unplugged her. I started noticing little routines she was doing, stuff that made no sense. Like setting out 2 forks at dinner, even though it was just the 2 of us, or keeping a glass of water next to the hallway door every night, then dumping it out in the morning. One morning, I found her standing in front of the fridge, staring at the inside with the door wide open, like she'd forgotten what food was for. She wasn't sleeping much either. I'd hear her pacing at night, her footsteps soft and careful, like she was trying not to wake something. Then came the night I found her standing in the corner of my room, not moving, just standing there in the dark, facing the bed. I didn't say anything. I pretended to be asleep. After a few minutes, she left. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. That was the moment I decided I needed to know what was behind that door. I waited until she went to her weekly church group meeting. She never took her tea ring with her when she walked to the community center. It was too close to bother. I found the yellow key in her sock drawer, beneath a rolled-up t-shirt. The teeth were worn down. The metal was darker than the rest, almost black, like it had been left in a fire and polished afterward. I slid it into my pocket and stood in front of the yellow door for the first time without fear. I wasn't curious anymore. I was done wondering. I was just tired. I put the key in. It turned. The door opened slow. The smell hit me first, like wet soil and something sick, like spoiled milk and copper pennies. I held my breath and stepped inside. There was no furniture, no boxes, just a bare wooden room with deep scratch marks in the floor, spiraling inward toward the center. At the center was a square pit about 3 feet wide, uncovered, just a clean cut into the floor. No stairs, no ladder. A wooden shaft that led down into blackness, except it wasn't deep. I could see the bottom. There was something crouched there, pale, thin, dirt-caked skin. Its back was to me, but I could see its shoulder blades poking through like broken wings. It turned, and where its eyes should have been, there were just 2 dents, dark and sunken, but focused like it could still see me. It opened its mouth, but no sound came out. Then it slowly raised one hand, its fingers twitching in weird broken angles, like it was trying to count. Then it smiled, not like a person, like it had never practiced how. I slammed the door and locked it. I took the key and walked outside, jammed it under the side of the house through a crawl vent, and didn't go near that end of the hallway for the rest of the week. My mom didn't ask any questions. That night, she made soup, set 2 bowls on the table, one in front of me, one facing the hallway. I didn't eat, neither did she. After that, we didn't stay long. She came into my room the next night, said we were leaving. No warning, no planning. She didn't even let me pack everything. Just told me to grab what I needed. When we left, she didn't lock the front door. She didn't even close it. We moved into a 2nd-floor apartment across town. Small, quiet, clean. No crawl spaces, no dark corners, no mismatched doors. For a while, it felt like things were getting better. But I could see the way she watched shadows, how she avoided the closet, how she unplugged every mirror in the house and kept them turned against the wall. She started forgetting things, simple stuff. What day it was, whether she'd eaten. Sometimes she'd sit in the kitchen for hours, just staring at the fridge light. One night, I woke up and she wasn't in bed. I found her standing in the bathtub, fully clothed, no water running, but the tub was full, freezing cold. She didn't move when I opened the door, just stood in the water, whispering something under her breath. Her lips were cracked. Her eyes looked glassy. I leaned closer. She was saying, "He's still hungry." That was the last time I saw her normal. She vanished 3 nights later. No signs of a break-in. Her shoes were still by the door. Her phone was charging in the kitchen. She was just gone. I called the police. They searched, filed a report, but I already knew they wouldn't find her. Not unless they were willing to open a certain door. I finished school, got a job, rented a small studio apartment in the city. 1 room, 1 closet, no upstairs, no hallway. It felt like a fresh start. No one asking questions, no weird habits to explain, just me. It was fine, until 2 weeks ago. I got a package, no return address, no postmark, just my name, written in shaky block letters like someone wrote it with their non-dominant hand. Inside was a yellow doorknob, painted pale, still cold. Beneath it was a note, just 7 words, written in faded pencil. "Don't let it in this time." I didn't sleep that night. The next night, I pushed my dresser in front of the closet. Then I painted over the door with white primer. The next night, I nailed it shut. That was 5 days ago. And now, every time I blink, I swear the paint looks more yellow than it did the day before. It started with a message that came late at night. "You were gonna crash here or what?" I'd known Brandon since middle school. We'd been through everything together. Breakups, first jobs, bad haircuts, worst decisions. But I had never once spent the night at his house. Not for lack of invites. I just never said yes. Couldn't tell you why. Something in my gut always said don't. But this time, something was different. Maybe I was just tired of saying no. My parents are heading out for the weekend. Got the place to ourselves. That was all it took. His house sat past the last bus stop, just beyond where street lights start looking tired. It wasn't remote exactly, but it felt like it had been forgotten. The road curved awkwardly around it, like the town had tried to avoid it but couldn't. When I pulled into the driveway, the first thing I noticed was how tall the house looked. Narrow and stretched, like someone had grabbed the roof and pulled upward until the walls gave in. The paint had once been white, I think. Now, it looked like milk left out too long. Brandon opened the front door before I knocked, like he'd been waiting with his hand on the knob. "You're early," he said. "Come in." His voice was off, not thick, just worn down. I stepped inside and the smell hit me. Old dust, something sour underneath, and something sweet that didn't belong, like perfume sprayed in a room where something had died. I didn't ask. I followed him up the stairs. The hallway to his room was lined with framed photos, but each one was blurred or scratched. Some looked burned. Faces smeared like wet ink. In one, the eyes had been scraped out with something sharp. The glass was cracked and no one had bothered to replace it. "Why are all your pictures messed up?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just opened his bedroom door. His room was the only normal thing in the house. Blankets in a messy pile, game console glowing under the TV, half-eaten bag of chips on floor. I dropped my backpack near the closet and sat on the edge of his bed. "You good?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, rubbing his eyes. "Just didn't sleep much." The afternoon passed in typical fashion. Pizza, trash talking over video games, dumb YouTube videos. For a few hours, the weirdness faded into the background. But I noticed the way Brandon kept checking the time. He'd glance at the wall clock every few minutes, like he was counting something down. At 8:53 p.m., he muted the game. "I need to tell you something," he said, still staring at the pause screen. "There's a rule here." "Yeah?" He turned to look at the door. "After 9 p.m., we stay in this room. No exceptions, no bathroom breaks, no opening the door, no talking to anyone who speaks through it." I waited for a grin, a chuckle, a punchline. It didn't come. "You're serious?" He nodded. "Dead serious. What about water or everything you need is in here," he said. Then he reached under his desk and pulled out a wide-mouthed plastic bottle. "What's that for?" He didn't answer right away. "Just in case," he muttered. That's when I noticed how thick the bolt on his door was. It looked homemade, steel plate, 4 screws, hand-cut, like something you'd see on a panic room. He flitted it across and wedged a doorstop under the frame. "Don't answer it," he said again, "no matter what." At 9 p.m. exactly, the house changed. Not with a sound, not with movement, but with a pressure, like we were sitting under the ocean now, and everything outside the door was heavier than it should be. At 9:06, something knocked, soft, gentle, like a polite visitor. Then a woman's voice. "Brandon, honey, can you open up for me?" My stomach tightened. I turned to him, but he was already curled up on the beanbag chair, his face buried in his hands. "Your mom?" I asked. "She's not here," he said. "They leave before sundown, always." The voice continued. "I baked those cookies you love, the ones with the sea salt. I bet your friend's hungry too." My heart thudded harder than the knock had. It was warm, familiar. I'd never heard her voice before, but something about it dug into my brain like a memory I didn't have. I stepped toward the door. He didn't lift his head, but his voice cut through the air like a wire. "Don't, please. She knows your name now." "What are you talking about?" The voice changed. "Open the door," it said. Still the same tone, but the edge had sharpened. "Open it." A loud thud slammed into the wood. The door didn't budge. Another. Something heavy dragged its nails across the surface, scraping, testing. It wasn't trying to get in, not yet. It was trying to wear us down. Time got weird after that. Minutes stretched. Hours doubled. Sometimes the voice returned, sweeter than before, asking about our day, about school, about my mom. Sometimes it was deeper, like something was gargling nails behind the wall. At one point, the voice said something I'll never forget. "You've already let me in. I just want you to know me." Brandon hadn't spoken in an hour. I crawled over to him and shook his shoulder. "Talk to me, man. What is that thing?" He didn't look up. "We call it the wisher," he said, voice cracking. "It watches. It copies. It wants to be wanted. That's the rule." "What rule?" "If you give it a place," he whispered, "it takes it. That's what it wants. A role, a voice, a face." "Why here?" He looked at me then, eyes rimmed red, face damp with sweat. "Because this house was built for it." Around 3:30 a.m., the knocking stopped. The scraping went quiet. No more voices, not even a whisper. That was worse, because now we were waiting for the next thing. I sat with the flashlight Brandon gave me, an old mag light with electrical tape wrapped around the handle. He told me never to let it go. The silence held for maybe 10 minutes. Then came footsteps, slow, heavy, coming up the stairs. Wood creaked in slow rhythm, like it was dragging something. Brandon bolted upright. "No, no, no, no," he whispered. "What?" I asked. "It's never come up the stairs before." The steps stopped just outside the door. My heart was thundering in my ears. Then the door shook. One hit, two, then it exploded. Splinters flew like shrapnel. The bolt ripped from the frame. The door swung open, hanging loose on one hinge. What stood in the hallway was, no, what assembled itself in the hallway was a thing trying to be a person. It wore Brandon's hoodie. One arm was a broken table leg. The other was made of wires, cables, and silverware. Its legs were dresser drawers. A photo of Brandon's family was duct taped to its chest like a badge. And for a face, a mirror, round, cracked. And inside it, my own face, younger, smiling, like a version of me that never left this place. The thing stepped into the room, joints creaking, wires twitching. The photo on its chest fluttered with every lurch. Brandon screamed. I hit the thing with the flashlight beam. It reeled back, like the light burned without flame. It shrieked, not with one voice but many, a choir of wrong tones, a sound that made my ears ache and my stomach twist. The light heard it, but it didn't run. We held it at bay for what felt like an hour. Every time it crept forward, I shoved the beam at its chest and it recoiled, parts falling off like dead skin. It didn't scream anymore. It just watched and waited. The battery gauge on the flashlight blinked red. "It's dying," I said, voice trembling. "Just a little longer." Brandon whispered, not taking his eyes off the window. "Just a little longer." I wanted to believe him, but the wisher knew. It lurched forward. I threw the last thing I could reach, a lamp. It bounced off the mirror face and shattered against the wall. The thing kept coming. Then, the faintest shift of light outside. A line of pale gray split the horizon. Dawn. The first light hit the edge of the window. The creature froze. And then, it fell apart. The photo fluttered to the ground. The drawers toppled. The mirror face cracked down the center and turned to powder. The silverware hand clattered onto the floor. The pile of it collapsed like garbage. And in the dust, we smelled the grave again. Earth, rot, time. Sunlight poured into the room, and the wisher was gone. Brandon didn't move. He just stared at the pile, silent. We didn't speak again until I left. His parents were already in the kitchen when I came down, dressed, calm, eating toast like the house hadn't nearly killed us. They didn't say good morning. They didn't look at me. They just stared, eyes blank, distant. But I saw what was under it, disappointment, like the plan hadn't worked. I never saw Brandon again. He stopped showing up at school. His number disconnected. No one answered the door when I went back. That was 2 months ago. I told myself I'd imagined most of it, that I was tired or dreaming, or maybe got drugged somehow. But that didn't explain what came next. 3 nights ago, I woke up with my bedroom window open. I live on the 3rd floor. The next night, I found dirt under my fingernails. My door was unlocked. I don't even remember standing up. Then, last night, it happened. I found a photo on my desk, a picture of me, standing in Brandon's hallway, smiling. And beside me, someone I've never seen before, someone my age, wearing my clothes, with my face, on the back in jagged black ink. Room for one more. I think the wisher got what it wanted. It didn't need Brandon anymore. It wants me now. And the worst part? Sometimes when I'm brushing my teeth or walking by a window, I catch my reflection doing something I didn't. A twitch, a smile, a blink too slow. Like it's learning, like it's almost ready, like the role is already being filled.